Imagine the guy selling you a revolutionary new technology, stepping up to a microphone and warning you that using it might actually make you lose your ability to think. Wild, right? It's a massive contradiction. But that is exactly what OpenAI CEO Sam Altman recently did. He literally pointed to cognitive atrophy as one of the biggest risks of artificial intelligence. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are completely cutting through the marketing noise to see what is actually happening on the ground. We're going to contrast the grand, utopian promises being made by tech executives against the very grounded, day-to-day reality of worker experiences. Okay, let's look at our roadmap. We've got 5 stops today: the illusion of inevitability, the rise of bot sitting, the workplace morale crisis, bursting the ROI bubble, and finally, the danger of de-skilling. All right, let's just dive right in. Part 1, the illusion of inevitability, or why resistance feels so futile. We really have to ask ourselves, why would a tech CEO publicly highlight the cognitive dangers of his own product? Is it a genuine warning? Or, is there a totally different strategy at play here? Well, tech journalist and author Paris Marx points out in our source material that bringing up cognitive atrophy might actually be a pretty clever rhetorical trick. I mean, think back to the 1970s, right? When calculators first arrived, people totally panicked about losing their math skills. In the 2000s, GPS sparked all these fears about losing our spatial awareness. So by lumping AI in with these everyday tools, the message being sent is one of sheer inevitability. The subtext is basically, yeah, sure, there are trade-offs, but this tech is coming whether you like it or not, so you might as well get on board. It frames AI not as a choice we get to make, but as this unstoppable evolution. Moving on to part 2, the rise of bot sitting. Let's step away from the executive framing and look at the actual workplace reality. Because while the C-suite is promising us this unprecedented, frictionless efficiency, man, employees are experiencing something entirely different. Enter a brand new phenomenon known as bot sitting. Workers aren't just doing their normal jobs anymore. Because AI tools can hallucinate or plagiarize or honestly just spit out totally irrelevant information, employees are now saddled with this hidden, unpaid labor of managing these temperamental chatbots. They have to constantly verify the outputs, endlessly tweak their prompts, and literally massage the AI's work just to make it usable. It's wild. And we actually have the data to back up this burden. According to a survey from Adaptivist, 42% of office workers report spending more time verifying and correcting AI output than the time they theoretically saved by using it in the first place. I want you to really think about that. Almost half the workforce is finding that this so-called ultimate time-saving tool is actually just a massive time sink. And naturally, this leads to massive friction in our offices. Get this, 49% of workers in that exact same survey report that forced AI integration is actively slowing down projects that they could have finished way faster on their own. Instead of just doing the work, they're jumping through hoops to justify using an AI tool to their bosses. It's adding a whole new layer of busy work to their day. Which brings us to part 3, the workplace morale crisis. Because when you have tools that are actively slowing down projects and creating all this hidden labor, well, that's a direct recipe for burnout. And this friction, it's fueling a very real, very rapidly growing morale crisis at work. Just look at this massive disconnect captured by Upwork. On one side, roughly 70% of managers believe generative AI is saving their team's time. But at the exact same time, roughly 70% of workers find that these tools are actually making them less productive and just adding more work to their already full plates. So management is buying the hype while the workers are paying the price in sweat and frustration. And the sheer scale of this frustration is absolutely staggering. A full 2/3 of office workers openly admit they wish work would just return to the days before AI adoption. They would literally rather go back to the old way of doing things than deal with the constant, everyday friction of bot sitting. Now, you might expect Gen Z, the digital natives, to be leading the charge for AI. But surprisingly, they are pushing back the hardest. Despite being the highest users of the technology, studies show they actually hate it the most. Astonishingly, 1/3 of surveyed Gen Z workers admit to actively sabotaging the rollout of AI at their jobs. Crazy, right? Because they are earlier in their careers and have fewer dependencies, they are proving much more willing to just quit a job that forces them to use AI tools that compromise the quality of their work. All right, part 4, bursting the ROI bubble, where companies reassess the costs. We've seen how unhappy the workers are, but what happens when executives finally stop listening to the hype and look closely at their balance sheets? Well, the bubble bursts.
But the past few years, the corporate mantra was basically adopt generative AI at absolutely any cost. Just stay on the cutting edge and boost those stock prices. But that mandate to adopt AI everywhere, it's finally cracking. Companies are waking up to the reality that they have burned millions of dollars on completely useless generative AI tasks with little to zero actual return on investment.
Even the biggest players in the tech world are slamming on the brakes. Uber's president recently revealed that the company blew through its entire annual AI budget in just a matter of months, forcing a massive reassessment. Amazon had actually set up these internal goals, pushing employees to maximize their AI usage, which basically led to workers using AI for ridiculous, mundane things just to hit their targets. Amazon completely scrapped that system once they realized they were just setting money on fire. Even Microsoft has explicitly warned its employees against token maxing, essentially telling them, hey, stop pointlessly forcing AI into tasks where it doesn't belong just to use it. Paris Marx brings some really vital historical context to this whole conversation. Do you remember the last big AI hype cycle in the 2010s? We were promised robot taxis and massive automation that was going to replace half of all jobs. But what did we actually get? Algorithmic surveillance. AI was used to tightly manage and surveil workers, like in Amazon warehouses, where literally every package scan and movement is tracked. As the current generative AI bubble bursts, there is a real risk that the remaining use cases won't be about empowering workers at all. Instead, they might just pivot toward finding new ways to monitor and control how employees spend every second of their time. And that brings us to our final section, the danger of de-skilling. Let's zoom out from the corporate finances and the immediate workplace struggles for a second. What is the long-term societal threat this technology poses as we look towards, say, 2030? This brings us right back to our initial hook, cognitive atrophy, and the very real danger of losing our foundational abilities. So here's how this cognitive offloading actually plays out in what we call the de-skilling loop. Imagine a software coder offloading a complex task to an AI chatbot. Because the AI is doing all the heavy lifting, that worker slowly loses their grip on the foundational logic of the code. Fast forward a bit, and eventually the AI generates a severe bug. But now, that worker is totally out of practice. They lack the human capacity to jump in and fix it. Marx actually points out that historically, de-skilling has often been done on purpose, specifically to reduce worker control and shift power directly back to management. Now, if you think this sounds a little alarmist, we really only have to look at the recent past. Over the last 2 decades, platforms like social media and dating apps fundamentally transformed how we interact. They quietly eroded our in-person social and communication skills. We didn't even notice the degradation until the damage was already deeply ingrained in our society. The warning here is that generative AI threatens to layer right on top of that. It's not just degrading our social skills this time, but quietly and permanently atrophying our critical thinking and foundational job skills. So I want to leave you with a final thought today. If the very companies selling us this technology are openly acknowledging that it will degrade our ability to think, are we, as a society, truly prepared to accept the trade-off of widespread cognitive atrophy just for a bit of digital convenience? It's a huge question, and it's one we absolutely need to answer before we let the algorithms do the thinking for us. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.